Welcome, everyone, to Fire and Water, the podcast. I'm Tenneson Wolf, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Quanita Robertson, and a special guest that's coming in today. We think of this podcast as adding a little coming of age in this age. We're glad to have shows that we get to have some conversations about such things. And in particular with this podcast, as we kind of reboot it or continue it into 2023. We have a particular desire to bring in some of the people that we've done some deep learning with or have deep respect for, elders, guides, to hopefully contribute to some of the wise ways of being in the world these days. So particularly glad that we get to huddle up today. And Quanita, I'll hand it over to you to say your hello and maybe introduce our special guest.
Okay, first I'm going to say hello and say my voice is a little different than it normally is because I've been sick and I'm coming out of it. But I'm really excited to be here with Tenneson and our special guest, Eileen Cooper Reed, known to me as Mama Eileen. And let me tell you just a little bit about Mama Eileen. First, work-wise, some of the things that she's done in the world is she's been executive director for Children's Defense Fund in Cincinnati and in Columbus. She has worked as a court magistrate for family court. She also was the head of the public school board here in Cincinnati, Ohio. But what I really appreciate most about what she's brought into my life is I say that she carries this strength and grace is kind of how I've explained it, and a little bit of audacity that I love and have learned from. And one of the stories I tell people that I love is that there's meetings that'll have happened in the city where neither of us were invited to, and you've just said, like, well, I'm going, they're not going to ask me to leave, come on, you're coming with me. So we've kind of like crashed these meetings, which I think is wonderful, and just this for me an example of what freedom is. It's like the constraints that we assume are there that aren't necessarily there. So I've learned from that. Welcome, Mama Eileen. What would you like to say?
Well, thank you for inviting me, first of all. So I do have a little bit of a tickly throat, so excuse me for its raspiness. But I'm always glad to be with both of you, actually. And I haven't been with you in a while. So this is a great way to start off my year as I'm trying to be more intentional about how I'm entering into it. So just thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. One of the things I know is that the past couple of years have been full for you. And not always really easy ways, and so I'm curious about what are some of the learning that or wisdom that you've gathered that you think is important to share here.
Wow, that's a good one, actually, because the last couple of years have been hard for most people. It just depends on in different ways for each of us, perhaps, but they've been difficult. And one of the things that occurs to me is that we have to, well, we don't have to, but how to think about living in uncertainty, in groundlessness, in understanding that we don't really have any control over the things that go on around us. What we have is how we respond to them, and so that's one thing. It's just there is no such thing as certainty except what we construct in ourselves, in our minds. And that's okay, because that's what gives us the way to proceed, if we will, or to be in the world, so, but understanding that feeling uncertain is okay. It's not it's not, it can feel life ending, but it's not life ending, unless we just kind of give up, and so just thinking about the uncertainty. But I think the other thing that I've learned is, or I'm learning, because these things take time. So you don't learn them and then you know them. You learn them and you kind of try to live into them and see what that means. And that is that my place in my family and community has changed significantly over the last couple of years, from losing my parents, even at this late date, to losing a child, and where that puts me then in my family, what's the role is shifting, and so how do I fit in terms of the changing dynamics of my family and my community, so in my family, it has been learning the matriarchy, the matriarchy of which I play a part. Yeah, I am not the only matriarch. My sister is right there with me, but the matriarchy is a system of operation, I think. And so how we operate in our family as a result of what roles we play is important to at least to pay attention to, and to try to figure out what's mine to do, what's only mine to do, not what's everybody's to do. Not do I have to be the whole matriarch. It's what's mine to do in this process, and kind of the same thing is true of community. So, so it's your turn. Mine is shifted. I was working and I was doing this and this and that, and I did it for a long time too. I find that some of us don't give up easily, but but passing the mantle is extremely important. At the same time as passing the mantle, learning how to do that well, so that once again you kind of begin to understand what your role is, and then what your responsibility is to those coming behind, and how you do that. So I think those are probably two of the major things that I'm continuing to learn. And it's pretty it's real contemplative, I should say, because you really got to sit still and think about it. And most of us don't, I think about those things. But for me, I'm not sure how you do it without being contemplative, so that's kind of what I'm learning.
I'll jump in with you, Eileen. I've got a smile on my face here because of what you're sharing, of how you're sharing it, because we've had a few points of connection over the years now. And I'm so glad to be in a space with you, to be reflective here, or to be contemplative here. And we'll just follow it a little bit in a few different places. I wonder, Eileen, if there's an example you could flesh out a little bit of what you used to be 10 years ago and what you are now, like how some of that learning has changed, and how that feeds into how you're passing the mantle on some of the things that are important.
Okay, so I'll use the two tiers or two strands I was talking about before, which is because what you do in your family, you kind of tend to also carry out into community. So starting with my family, I have been a caregiver, for a long time in the family. And so I cared for not just me, but I'm talking about me now. So my sister and I have really been the ones who took care. My parents lived into their 90s, and their twin lived into her 90s. One of my mother's twin lived into her 90s, and they all used to live together in one house. And so we cared for them in that house. And looking back, what I realized is that we've always cared for somebody in the family who became the center of all of our decision making, or at least the beginning of all our decision making. So with my parents lived a developmentally disabled aunt who lived well into her 80s, which was unheard of. And we used to, before we ever did anything as a family, we made sure that she was taken care of.
Yeah.
And then it became the next person who was that was that way. Before my parents, before we did anything, we made sure my parents were taken care of when they could no longer do it. You know, and so that's, so now, you know, I am at the point of needing some care, a different kind of care than I needed then. I don't need to be taken care of, particularly, but I do need some care. And me understanding that and allowing it to happen, and at the same time as people actively caring for me, is a kind of a I'll say a little bit of a dance, of trying to figure that out. So you want to be able to be independent and do what you can, you know, but you also know that you need help. You need assistance. You need more assistance than you needed before, you know. And so that's the, and that doesn't always have to be an aging process, but it happens, you know. But if you live, it's going to happen to you. You know, it's going to happen to you somewhere along the line, right? And so that's how it is. And kind of the same thing is true in community. You know, so I was telling Quanita earlier, I said, thank you for caring for me, because I know that if something happens, there are certain people who will just be there, who will just show up. So that when the best example I can give is when my son passed, he died in a car accident, and they notified us at 6 a.m. So I went over to pick up to be with his partner, and she was pregnant with one of his children. And then my grandson was with her and brought them to my house. At noon, my driveway was filled with 5 cars. And it was just a group of women who came and who brought me everything imaginable. I mean, everything imaginable. I was not going to have to go shopping. I was not going to need paper goods. I was not going to need water. I was not going to need food. It lasted for months, you know. And so I credited part of that to the fact that I was like one of them and would do the same thing, you know. And so that kind of caring, you know, is really quite wonderful if you let yourself do it, you know, if you let yourself receive it. So opening up to receive those things in community as well. And then the other part of that is making sure that I'm caring in another way for the young people in my community. Yeah, and those who I'm a elder, you know, who actually ask me to elder, because that's the way it goes. You don't decide you're an elder. The young people decide you're an elder, you know, and they do that by coming to you and asking you things, you know, and asking you for conversation, for guidance, sometimes for advice, yeah, and so you don't have to then do it anymore. You can be a support to them.
Beautiful.
Did that kind of respond to you?
Yeah, and took me in 17 different directions that I'm excited about now with you. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that you talked about in the receiving and kind of the young people come to you, you know, I was recently had, well, a long time ago, heard a quote by Yana Van Sant, who said that we think relationships are a place to find love, and they're not. They're a place to practice it. And lo and behold, as you're practicing it, it gets reflected back to you. And what I would say, you know, one of the things I was so grateful for is, you know, I call you Mama Eileen because you have mothered me. You're one of my community mamas. And when my mother died, you just showed up for me. Like, there was one point where probably at least twice a week, I'd get a call from you and you'd say, "You got coffee?" I'd say, "Yes." He's like, "Okay, I'm coming over." And you'd come over and we'd sit in the living room and talk and plot and plan. And you like held the ground for me. And so one of the reasons that I would come is because you taught me to come by doing it yourself. And I think that to me, that's what eldering is it is the like living it. Like we learn so much about your life through your life than we do what you tell us. And I would just offer that into the center.
Yeah, I do find that that's pretty true of most of the young people that I interact with that come. They come for the mothering. I mean, it is the mothering, you know, it's and I'm happy to be able to do that. I mean, it's joyful to be able to do it, you know, because sometimes people, thank you so much. I said, I'm getting as much out of this as you are. Be clear, you know, this is the way, this is the organic way of love. You know, it really is, you know, that is who I am in the world. I'm a mother, you know, and a grandmother, and to males or females, by the way, but mostly to females, but not only to females. Females feel a bit freer to examine it and to ask for it, but there are males who do it as well. You know, I laughed because I was sitting with a young woman. We were having breakfast, and there was a young man that we both knew, and so we kind of told him to come over. I hadn't seen him in a while, and so he sat down, and he asked me a question, and I started talking as I love to do, you know, and we were talking and talking. I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, I really talked too much." He said, "No, no, no, no." He said, "I need my marching orders." I said, "Okay." He said, "You tell us what to do. We go do it." I said, "Well, no, that's the way it works. But I'm happy to share my thoughts with you, you know." So, but it's just, it really is a joy to be able to meet those kind of intergenerational needs on both of our parts, on their part and on my part. You know, so that's kind of what makes the world go round, isn't it? You know, so
I love it, Eileen. It might be the mutuality that is part of the eldering. You show up, someone shows up with you and they have questions, and yet there is something that you, in the sharing, in the giving marching orders, you share, and it creates something healthy or loving or kind, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if for you, when you think back to these circumstances of whoever you've been meeting with and welcoming into your kitchen, or, you know, inviting over to the table at the restaurant, when you think of, and I am speaking to the elder in you, that's lived some life and knows a thing or two and is being a thing or two, or just being. Is there a pattern in the marching orders that you find yourself sharing? You know, is there sort of like common elements that, oh gosh, you know, if you could remember one thing to whoever you're talking to, remember this.
You know, there may be, but I'm not sure that there is, because it really kind of depends on what they're asking for from me. You know, so because it's not really me, I'm just a conduit. I mean, an elder is really a conduit, and because the wisdom comes through, you don't have a, you know, I mean, I could, yes, but it really struck me that a group of elders was having a conversation and talked about really being a conduit for wisdom, that we aren't necessarily the because we restrict ourselves if we think we're the ones who know all this stuff. You know, so it's kind of based on the question that is asked. And then if you let yourself do that, then the wisdom can come through you in a way that you couldn't necessarily do on your own. You know, so being open to what the universe has to offer and answering it as best you can, or saying, I don't the hell know. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't know. You know, and so so really I think does kind of depend. But being openness has to be one of them. And listening and being open is right, really pretty much the only real pattern, because the openness is what attracts people. You know, and so I mean being open to them is what attracts them. You know, so feeling acceptance is what attracts them. You know, and that's just the way I show up in the world, right? So it's not for me, it's not something special necessarily. It's just who I am.
Yeah. You don't put on your elder suit or your elder apron. You just are.
I just am, yes. I mean, that's one of the things I am, you know, so.
Beautiful.
I love the description of being a conduit, because what I find is there's times that wisdom comes through me that I don't know it until it comes through me. Like I don't know that I knew it until it, like, somebody asks something and I answer and I'm like, oh, you know, I have to sit with that for a minute, because it's like it has to land in me too, because it's coming through me.
Yeah.
And there's times that I'll say it, and if we continue to move on, I'll forget, like, because it's just came through it. I didn't grab a hold
What
of
did I say? What did you
yes,
say?
yes, it's like, what was that? Somebody should have wrote that down, you know, but because it like you said, it's through me, it's not from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually the better the question, the more wisdom comes.
Yeah.
That so that it, you know, the better the question, the more wisdom comes through. You know, so yeah, I think that's probably a pattern. You know, because you can answer anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if it's a really good question that requires wisdom, then it comes through. Then it comes through. They mightily, you know, because I don't even know when it's happening until somebody says, "Oh, that's so wise." If you say so, you know.
I have a question for you. So I'm at a place right now where one of the book that I've been working on is called Birth by Many Mothers, and it's about my community mamas. And part of what I'm writing about is these relationship with these women in my life, you being one of them. And you know, there's an interesting dynamic of mother-daughter kind of relationships.
Yes.
And one of the things that, first of all, I've been so grateful for, because I think you're one of the examples that I have that has done the letting go well. I think not all of my mother-daughter interactions have the mothers known how to let go and how to be present too at the same time, I think. And so I'm just so grateful for that. But I also wonder, like, I've been thinking about what are pieces of the legacy that I carry from each of these women. And what is something that you see in you that you see in me that's a piece of the legacy you think that I carry that you have?
Probably a willingness to push the edge of the envelope.
You see that in Quanita. Is that what you're saying, Eileen?
Yeah. I see that. I do that, and she does, is what I'm saying. And that's what you asked, isn't that one of the things?
Yes.
That's what. So pushing the edge of the envelope is one of those, but not just for the sake of pushing. You know, for the sake of inquiry, you know, of inquiry. You know, so So you are curious. That's where the pushing the edge of the envelope comes. What can we do here? What can we do here? So I think that's what I see.
Hmm.
And then I do have one more, and that is then a willingness to express yourself emotionally.
Mm.
It's interesting because, the pushing the envelope, that piece, I kind of spoke it in one of the things I think you've brought is this audacity. And to me, it takes that and I've not always had that in me. Or maybe I have, I don't know.
Yeah, you've always had it. You might not have, it might not have been developed until a point, but you've always had that audacity, because in stories that you've told me, when you were younger, it was there.
Yeah.
It was in those stories. That's what I'm saying. And so and you're willing to try new things. You're willing to try whatever calls you, you'll go there, and I will unquestionably do that as well. Probably that more than even the other ones that I'm thinking about, just the willingness to explore and to be courageous in that exploration. And, and taking risks actually is, so having thought about it, that's probably the most closest to the legacy. We will both try new things, and we will try things that call us to be fairly bold, and but still at the same time to try to be kind in the process.
Thank you.
Broad question. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was asking you, what did you think, Tenneson? You know both.
Yeah, well, no, I'm following sort of the impressions. For me, it's kind of a treat to hear that, because you two have a relationship. On my screen, you're on both sides here. You two have a relationship that goes back over years and has many different layers to it. And Quanita, you and I know each other from a number of things now over the last, oh gosh, we're coming on 10 years here. And so it's kind of fun for me to hear you, Eileen, speak of some of these qualities with Quanita, to Quanita, and Quanita to watch you hear that and watch you receive it. So it's kind of like, oh gosh, I feel like I'm getting to be involved in that. But then I have another question for you too, Eileen, around men. And, if I'm trying to form the question here, but if the desire is a healthy masculine or a healthy world, period, gosh, that's way too big. I wonder if there's something in particular that you, from your space of life now, find yourself saying to or about men.
A lot, actually. And because I have 3 sons.
Yeah.
I have a husband. I had a father who I was very close to, and from whom I learned a lot about men. That said, he was different than the men I know. All of them. He would tell me at 91, he said, look, you females need to take over. This is the 91-year-old man said, you all need to take over, because we've had this earth for 2,000 years and we've really pretty much messed it up. And he said, and so women have compassion, women have nurturing. Those are women's qualities of women's culture. And that's what this world needs. So for me, it's always been that when I look at the world, it's about the rebalancing that's taking place right now. And And the balancing is of reinfusing the feminine into the planet, because the one-sidedness has been what has been destructive. Now, if we get too far the other way, although by the time it gets there, we'll be gone. But if it gets too far the other way, a book called 2000 Seasons says it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You get out of balance either way, and it's going to be destructive. What happens, the way the world can progress, or the planet can progress, is through the balance and the mix of the masculine and the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so with regard to the masculine, so I've been kind of functioning by focusing on the feminine, actually, because I understand it better. So for instance, when women tell me, "Oh, boys are easier to raise,"
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's girls that are hard, I want to say, "But you're a girl. What do you mean they're too hard to raise?" I said, I understand how they think. I understand how women feel. I understand how women think. You know, that I am one. So for me, it was much easier for me to raise my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easier for me to let them go as well. So at 17, my girls were graduating from high school and gone. I mean, gone. They were gone to college and then gone. So most of their lives they have lived without me, not in my home, is what I'm saying. The guys are so different. They have. And frankly, I feel like I've bubbled my way through. I really do. I think we have good relationships, but I don't know that I've been able to either let them be or let them go. I mean, I used to have a friend who used to have to remind me, their journey, Eileen, their journey, not yours. You know, whereas the girls, I kind of let them have their journey. But the guys, that didn't happen. I mean, it did happen, but I really had to be conscious about it. And I know that the need to be conscious meant that I wasn't doing something in the background quite right. So no, I'm still trying to figure that one out too, Tenneson. And I got a 44-year-old son, so I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate your reflecting. I am a man, and I'm a 60-year-old version of this man also, myself.
Yeah.
And I find that in the last probably 15 years in particular, something related to this inquiry has become really important. And it really comes from a belly space for me of wanting to be, wanting to live with love, wanting to live with kindness, wanting to live with awareness of harm or patterns, and yet contribute, as in your language, Eileen, you say, to some of the rebalancing. So I have a few hunches in that, but I also just feel that it's a really important notion for the times that we live in. And as a man, as a male, and not restricting masculine and feminine to body or gender, there's something about how to contribute, even just to contribute in the tiniest of places, some healthy masculine. And I appreciate hearing it from you.
I wonder too, Mama Eileen, with the relationship you had with your father, how much that balance in you helped you more with your girls.
Oh, nice.
Because it's your own feminine having that masculine, because you carried some of him in you. I mean, you all were close, right? And that it was, that balance really supported your girls maybe in a different way than it was able to with your boys.
Well, that may be, but also, I think I had the two best parents in the world. Yeah. Even though my mother and I used to fight like we didn't fight, but we argued because I was just like her. That's what it boiled down. But I, for some reason, I was conscious early and remained conscious of the qualities that my parents carried, each of them, and that they were different, and how I tried to learn from the ways that I liked about how they raised me.
Mm-hmm.
And they were different in terms of that. So my mother, what I got from her and I really took and loved was her passion. Her passion for children, her passion for life, her passion for good, for that matter. What I got from my father was 6'4", and at one point weighed 250. He didn't always weigh that, but was a big man who ran a prison system, and yet he was probably one of the most gentle men I knew. So to see someone be so gentle and also run a prison system where it was clear that the guys who were incarcerated respected him as much as he respected them as human beings, made a difference. So my father was the one who, my father still writes my speeches. I haven't spoken recently, but whenever I used to have to give a 20-minute speech, on the way to the speech, I would, or sometimes shortly before, I would call my dad and say, Dad, I'm going to give a speech. And he said, who are you giving it to? And I'd tell him who I was giving it to. And he would say, what's it about? And I'd tell him what it's about. And then he would give me 3 points. 1, 2, tell this, tell that, tell him that, and then give him a charge. And that's what the speech should be. And so we run through the paper. He wrote the first half and I wrote the second half, and you couldn't tell that it was a different writer. And so that the intellect and the peace, those were his, and the gentleness of the male. He was a gentle male, so yeah, that helped. But my mother, her passion was where I got that from. So really being conscious of what I kind of paid attention to. I mean, I really paid attention even as a young person. I mean, a teenager, and younger, about how my parents were. Plus, I had, if you remember briefly, I had 2 sets of parents.
That's twins, what I was going to ask, your bonus parents.
Twins married twins in my family. So my mother was a twin, my father was a twin. Their twins married each other. So I had 4 parents. So that's amazing. I mean, that was amazing.
That just turns the head. That was good.
It does. It was amazing. And each of them had a different set of gifts, but they were all gifted. All gifted, like everyone is in their own way. And so just being able to swim in that giftedness was just quite wonderful, really. And I know that goes above and beyond what you asked, but I give you that.
I love all of this. Is there anything that you want to speak that you haven't yet?
That it never ends. Ooh. I mean, as long as you're alive, you are learning if you open yourself to it. And it is sometimes easy and sometimes not. And I used to think, oh, good, I'll be 70 and then, I'll do that and then everything will be wonderful. No. But well, it is wonderful. I mean, I'm thankful to be alive, and I couldn't. I mean, I've got 6 children and 17 grandchildren. What's not to want? Except that they tire me out now. I'm gonna tell you.
Let's tell the truth. I love them, but they tire me out too.
The 2-year-old, who is just dear, is a 2-year-old.
Right.
So that's what he is. He's going to wear me out regardless. Somebody said, oh, he's acting. I said, no, he's acting like a 2-year-old. He's busy. That's what he is. He's busy. That's it. And then there's the 24-year-old, trying to figure out his weight in life, So each of them still brings you different and joyful. And I tell them now, particularly the ones who are teenagers, I said, okay, I'm not going to be running after you. you know, this is a two-way street, two-way relationship, right? And if you want to talk to me, you want something from me, I suggest you make that contact. So you got some responsibility in this relationship if you choose to exercise it. If you don't, okay. When I feel like calling you, I will. So no, yeah, I can't think of it. Life maintains its interest. Let's put it that way. It continues to be interesting, continues to challenge. It continues to be joyful. And I'm just waiting to see what's next because I don't know. I'm in one of those, I'm redoing the first part of the year yet. I haven't been intentional enough. So it's a redo from the first. I want to start my year off differently. So I'm gonna read. Yeah. That's about it. What about you? You got anything you want to?
I think I want to just say thank you, for showing up as you do, for the yes that you continue to say to life and to me, and to the world. And just, I think we both have a practice of just letting each other know that we appreciate and love and care for each other. And and I just want to, speak that again here and just say thank you.
Back at you. Okay, your turn.
Yeah, I'll take a turn. I'll put mine in there also. Really loving you're sharing your story, your way of being here, Eileen, as we show up on a screen together as we're recording it. What day is it today? Thursday in January. But something about you, your ongoing living, which is probably fed by a bunch of things, your own curiosity, your own love, your own feistiness, your own wonder. In the space of the last 45 minutes or so that we've had together, I find myself thinking of myself as a parent, my kids, my adult kids, and just being with them a little bit over the holiday break. I can feel the aliveness in me that is about just being a good human, trying to be a good human, and show up in those ways, show up for myself in those ways. And then also, I appreciate you taking on the question or the area and the domain of men and the masculine. It's something I feel committed to from a very deep belly place within me. So all of that is to say, oh gosh, thanks for showing up today so that we could be in this together.
Oh, thanks much. I would like to say that a couple of things that my parents gave us were, number one, that we were no better or no worse than any other human being. Not ever forget that. That was number one. That they didn't say it this way, Shirley Chisholm said it, but that service is the rent we pay for living. So service was something that was very important in my family. And what was the last thing? I usually say second. Yeah, I don't remember what it was right at this point, but it was those things that grounded us in who we were, and how we were to treat each other and those outside of our family. So that's where all this comes from.
Beautiful. Let's drop the mic on that. Podcasty things, go ahead. Yeah, I'll just say shift into that voice. Thank you, Eileen, again. Thanks to all who are listening here today. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your own journey of learning and connecting and being community, all of those things that go together. So may we continue in the best ways that we can to live the mystery and live the clarity of it all. More information for those of you that have been listening. Quanita and I have a shared website at qtwisdom.com. We've got our fire and water site. You can kind of find everything from the qtwisdom.com site, including links to our individual sites, you, Quanita, at Nizuzu, me at tennysonwolf.com. Thanks for a beautiful little chunk of time together.
Yeah, thank you. Mhm.